services. I worked at diapers for 14 plus years. And then I worked at a restorative school in Delaware, and now I'm at a charter school here. So it's just different perspectives that I came up with, starting with COVID, and I'll talk about that next. So just please take your time and talk amongst yourself. Some disappeared. Not because they gave up, because they had no device. No internet at home, and no one could help them connect. So working in Child Protective Services, I had to learn that, we had to make sure kids were going to school, doctors, etc. So checking on them during COVID, they weren't able to attend school because they didn't have a Chromebook. Or if they finally received a Chromebook by a couple months later, they were behind. There might have been 5 children in one household with 2 outdated Chromebooks. I had families that were dealing with a lot of that. And then families couldn't afford Wi-Fi. So that was a major concern. So COVID didn't create the problem. It just brought it to the surface. Something that we were now seeing, we were ignoring. Now we see that we can no longer ignore it. What did we learn from that? The gap wasn't new. Some children didn't have access, struggled long before the pandemic. COVID just exposed it. Having technology didn't mean that they were prepared. So I had my children, they came home every day with Chromebooks. COVID hit, now they had to go to school online. They weren't prepared for that though. Teachers weren't prepared for that. They weren't used to teaching all day long, okay, how were they prepared? How were students prepared? How was everyone learning while dealing with uncertainty, right? Now the same thing is happening with AI. Some students are learning AI skills, most are not. And we're waiting for another crisis to notice. A lot of us are being reactive instead of proactive. We have students that are learning how to use AI with, whether it's TikTok, making music videos, or just submitting papers, which I'm sure everyone had those issues in class. I know I did this school year. So when the next disruption comes, and it will we ask again why some students are ready and others are not? The answer will be the same, but this time we could have done something about it instead of ignoring it. So this is not just an underserved school district issue. This is not something that is exclusive to like a Trenton Public Schools or Camden Public Schools. So 2 different schools, same problem. So a school, underserved urban area school, no AI tools or curriculum exist in the building. Students go home to no device or no internet. Teachers have not received any AI training, and technology feel like it's something that belongs in other schools. Schools that have plenty of resources, maybe Blue Ribbon. AI tools exist, but no one teaches how to use them well. Students use AI to complete work, but do not understand it. Teachers feel overwhelmed and trying to figure it out all alone. So many teachers are trying to figure out, is this an actual paper? What can I do to check to make sure? Then they're saying that they did submit the paper. The AI checker is saying it's 70%, AI generated, where the student is saying, no, I worked hard on this. Having tools is not the same as knowing what to do with them. So they can give you all the tools in the world, but what happens if you're not trained properly? Now we have students using tools, they may know more than we do, but guess what? It's still that disconnect will become very overwhelming and stressful. The problem's not about money, it's about not having a plan. So I did some research, and different publications talk about 68% of teachers receive no AI training from their school district. 14% of U.S. school districts have formal AI policy. 18% of principals reported that their school provided guidance, and only 13 in lower economic and impoverished neighborhoods. So you look at the amount of those who actually have internet and can afford it. 57% of adults in households under 30,000 making under $30,000 have it, where you have 95% who make more than 100,000 that have it in their home. So it's not a student problem, it's a systematic problem. So is AI good or bad? It could be a little bit of both, right? It could be good and bad. It could be smart, work smarter, not harder, right? But it can cause a lot of other issues that we're faced with every day with students. So benefits, it can adjust how fast or slow students learn. It prepares students for jobs that are already using AI. That's very important. You know, you have to use certain keywords to apply for jobs. If not, the detector will not say, okay, you're an applicant that we want to move forward in the process. I think a lot of us learn that just trying to apply for jobs ourselves. It prepares, it can free up a teacher's time and have meaningful conversation with students. So yes, it can help with lesson planning. You can put your own information in it, it can help organize it, you put in what you want in it, and it can say, all right, we'll add this, and it can help. Whereas before, you're up here doing PowerPoints and lesson planning, it takes what, 10 plus hours trying to make sure if you're having more than one prep, because I had more than one prep this year. I had like 3 or 4 preps. I had history, U.S. History 2, U.S. History Honors, AP African American Studies, psychology, and sociology. So doing all those preps at once can be very much overwhelming. So when you have AI that can help, you know, speed up the process, but you're using the information that you want in there, it can be helpful. But the concerns, without a real plan, it widens the gap between students who are ready and those who are not. Handing teachers a tool without training sets everyone up to fail. AI tools can reflect biases and unfairness if no one is teaching students to question them. Students with lots of technology but no guidance produce students who can use AI but don't use critical thinking skills. That's a major concern. Using AI and a lack of critical thinking skills during the development is a major concern. So, I want to take, probably should slow this down. So why students stop believing technology is for them? So do you think some students feel like it's not for them? Do you feel like they kind of feel like it's for certain groups and not, it wasn't taught to them because it's really not accessible? Because we remember we have access when we're talking about students. Some know that they belong in certain rooms, some believe they do not. So I call that the glass house conditioning. This happens when systems quietly teach people that certain spaces are not for them. Not by saying it out loud, but by leaving them out long enough by having them stop trying to get in. So I don't have to say you don't belong here, but I can show you by creating certain systems and groups. So what does that look like in school? When a student never sees AI tools at school, the unspoken message is this was not made for you. After enough time, students do not even raise their hand. They have already decided to answer. This happens in well-resourced schools too. When students have tools, but no one teaches them to think critically. They learn to follow and not lead. So when does schools not show up? Something else that does. Students do not stop learning just because the school does not teach them something. Students learn more outside of the classroom than they do inside the classroom. They bring a lot of knowledge and their own skills that they develop from their own environment, their home, just whoever they interact in their social environment. They bring it to class, which is supposed to teach them how to critically think and compartmentalize, but a lot of times they're not learning critical thinking skills. What students are already doing? Using ChatGPT, YouTube, TikTok to figure out AI on their own, teaching themselves and each other outside of school, applying AI to real life situations without any formal instruction. I'm sure many of you had students that generated papers. You say, hey, I want you to write me 2-3 paragraphs on a certain topic. Everyone puts it in ChatGPT. Wait a minute, I'm reading this paper over and over again. I think, wait a minute, hold on, I have to go back. I have at least 3 or 4 students that have the same paper. No different. And then you ask them, oh, it wasn't me, I submitted mine first. Yeah, you may have submitted first, but you all have the same paper. AI can't differentiate, oh, this was for Alan, but this wasn't for Amy. So what do we do with that? So then you ask them questions and then they say, I don't know, but you provided a paper and you want me to give you a grade. What can teachers do with that? Acknowledge what students already know instead of acting like they came in blank. Remember, they know a lot. Connect what they are doing informally to what they are teaching formally. Treat their curiosity and self-teaching as a strength, not a problem. So I actually had a student out of history, we were talking about Sacco and Vassetti, I think, and in history. And I wanted them to come up with a video. I'd rather, talk about what they decide the verdict. What side, no right or wrong answer, who are you for? Sacco and Vassetti or those who, the prosecutor side? One student gave me something on AI video generator. He was afraid. I felt like, oh, I said, no, that's fine, you can use it, but it has to be your content. Because I want them to know that they can use AI, but it should be original information inside that work. So we're gonna take some time in groups just to look at the scenario, and I'm gonna go over the discussion of explaining. We're gonna read the scenario and what went wrong, what did Ms. Rivera not know, and if Marcus had told his teacher he was using AI at home, what she could have done with that information. So we're gonna take like a few minutes and go over this. So Ms. Rivera teaches 8th grade computer class at a Title I middle school. The school has 12 computers shared among 400 students. There is no AI curriculum. Ms. Rivera has heard of ChatGPT, but has never used it in class. One of her students, Marcus, has been using AI tools at home to write stories and help his younger siblings with homework. He never told Ms. Rivera because he assumed it was not allowed. At the end of the year, Marcus scored below grade level on the state technology test. So, in groups, and then I'll go over this, you don't have to tell me right or wrong answer, but what went wrong for Marcus and when did it start? What did Ms. Rivera not know and who should have told her? If Marcus had told his teacher he was using AI at home, what should she have done with that information? So you just take a little bit of time, discuss that amongst yourselves, and then I'll go over the actual scenario. Okay? Go over it now. All right, so here's what this scenario is really about. Marcus was not unprepared. He wasn't taught. He found AI on his own. No one told him how to use it, and no one showed him how to use it with critical thinking skills, how it worked or when it was wrong. He relied on it and never questioned it. We have a lot of students that implement information, like say, hey, I need a history paper on something, the progressive era. What happened with that? What happened to progressive era? Who was the president at the time? And they get this entire paper and give it to you, and it could be wrong. It could have said the wrong Roosevelt. It could have said FDR, not Teddy. So they're not thinking, well, is this output accurate? They're not questioning it. They're not using research. They don't know how to research a lot of time. Ms. Rivera, she could not teach what she was never given. She's a part of the 68% of teachers who received no AI training. She did not know what Marcus knew at home because no one built a bridge between what students experience outside of school and what happens inside. So I think that's very important that we become more aware of what these children are involved in, because that helps as like a teaching component. You know, it's called like the cultural pedagogy. Understand the environment and what they're using and try to implement that and teach it. And don't get me wrong, I get it's already hard enough teaching, getting them to sit there for 75 minutes for one class and submit work, but you can grasp their attention if you implement something that they're using and use it somehow in your lesson plan, and it will actually work, because we did that in my classes. I tried my best to talk about things that they were interested in so that I can also teach the content that was in the curriculum. Without guidance, AI produces the same output for every student. Not showing. Come on. How's it? There you go. Okay, output for every student. Marcus was using AI at home with no instruction on how to bring his own voice and think. He lacked critical thinking skills. He just relied on a tool thinking that it was just accurate. He was unaware that it will produce the same information for multiple users. He thought, hey, I put something in there, it's not plagiarism, but it could be. When students use AI without critical thinking skill, it becomes dependent on it, which is dangerous. They're unable to think independently a lot of times, which can be a concern too. Here's a second scenario. A school with plenty of resources. Westville Academy gives every student a laptop and has fast internet without the building. Students regularly use AI tools for essays and research. Mr. Chen, a 10th grade English teacher, has noticed that the student's writing looked polished but feels empty. He suspects AI is involved but does not know how to address it. The school has no AI policy. When he asks students to explain their thinking in class, they can't. They produce the work, but did not understand it. So, amongst yourself, just questions, and I'll go over again. Are these students actually being prepared for the future, or does it just look that way? What is the difference between knowing how to use AI and knowing how to think with AI? What is missing from this school, and whose job is it to fix it? I'll just give you a few minutes, and again, I'll go over that scenario. With no understanding. They could produce polished work, but cannot explain their own thinking. That's not preparation for the future, that's performance. We have a lot of students that know how to perform, and the concern will be when they enter college, you have things like Turnitin scores. So they'll perform providing this AI generated paper. Turnitin score will say, oh no, this is above like what, 20%? They'll fail. So we're actually setting them up for failure. Well, not us, but those who make policy. Having technology without critical thinking and instruction creates dependency and not capability. When students are handed AI tools with no guidance on how to evaluate, question, or push back on them, they learn to follow the output, not lead the thinking. They're not double checking. They're not. They're just putting the information and they're giving us the work. AI detection tools are not the answer. We use them, right? Some of us use them. So they can give false positives too. So when Mr. Chen suspects AI use may turn into he turns to an AI checker. But those tools regularly flag real student writing as AI generated and miss the work that has been fully generated by AI. I had that issue before. I had a student, she works hard, put it in there, says like about 70%, where the student doesn't do anything, like 0%. And I already knew it wasn't his work because he didn't do anything the entire school year. And then I have this paper that's like 100. It's like, oh, it's amazing. He's talking about the grassroots and everything. He comes to class late. He's not doing well on task. But when I asked him about it, he found it, oh, well, it was him. He told me, he did tell on himself. So, and then some students are becoming very upset because we have English teachers that are using AI checkers, and they use more than one with different numbers that are produced, and they're failing students. So the students are becoming upset, and the parents have had meetings. So Mr. Chen saw the problem and had no support. A teacher who noticed something is wrong and has no policy, no training, no backup is an impossible position. It's tough. It caused another overwhelming situation, another barrier between you and the student. That is not a personal failure. That is what happens when institutions move faster than their people. So things that you can actually do. You can look at your curriculum and ask honestly, where does AI show up and where is it absent? Name what's missing. Bring AI tools into your classroom. Do not require students just to use them at home, especially if they don't have access. Teach them in class certain ways that they can learn, use critical thinking skills, and using AI because they're using AI anyway. If students are already using AI on their own, that's a strength. Start there and ask them what they use it for and build from that. So some of them are using it to make music or just videos. They use AI a lot. When your curriculum does not include AI, that is not your failure. I want you to know that, because a lot of this sounds like it's a you responsibility, and I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying this is where the concern is, and it's teachers are feeling like they're overwhelmed and the pressure is on them. Advocate for training, resources, and a real plan from your administrators. We haven't, she turned that way. Is that administrator?
No, we agree. We were happy to know that there was, principals and administration here. We were like, okay,
right.
Hopefully all the counties and the superintendents are all communicating just the importance of this, that they're not just hearing it from us in a liaison meeting and they're going, we're just being annoying. No,
right.
we're not. Like,
and it's not,
like it's real.
Yeah. So like I said, again, this is not a you issue. I'm saying those in charge who are making policies, they need to take this into account, because it's not fair for a teacher to have the responsibility for test scores and coming up with a lesson plan and making sure they're helping students that learn different ways. You have a student where audio, visual learner, and then now you have to try to figure out this, so that becomes very much overwhelming. So push back on those who are in certain positions.
Not to mention it's confusing for the kids.
Teach students to question AI and not to just use it. Who built it? What is it good for? What does it get wrong? What does it leave out? And that thinking will create a real skill. We have to teach them critical thinking skills. So a lot of times they're not developing that. As we do that, we'll help develop that. So this right here, you don't have to worry about endless cards. You could just think about this if you want. At the end, there will be a QR code. You can scan it and you'll actually have this. I had a handout and they just said put it on a QR code and it's attached to this slide. So at the end, you'll see it and you can get this information. So take a moment for yourself. One thing I'm seeing differently about students and technology after today, and I don't mean just this session, I just mean overall, the different courses that you had, the different sessions. One issue in my school or district I am now willing to speak up about. One change I can make in my classroom within the next 30 days. One student I am thinking about right now who deserves better than what they are getting. Think about that one student. Lack of access, trying to do the best they can, learning through AI tools. How can we help them? How can we address this with our administrators? What can we change as far as implementing that in our classes' use of AI? A lot of the kids like Kahoot. Isn't that like kind of AI generated? They love the Kahoot, the Blookies. So you just take a moment, you think about it, you don't have to really talk to anyone, just think about that. But like I said, I'll have this handout and the QR codes at the end. So I use these references to help support this presentation. Just the statistics alone, talking about the cultural pedagogy. So like art of the classroom that teaches when institutions fail. So you have to understand, what do the kids use to learn a lot of times? Music. Music teaches a lot of times. When there are certain concerns within schools and they're not teaching certain things within the curriculum, they're learning through music, poetry. They're learning through some type of art form. And then Glass House, how some fit in a room and some do not. So AI is another digital divide. We have to address that. And I'm not saying you per se, but administrators can. Artificial intelligence policy, K through 12. The students who are left behind are not left behind by accident. COVID showed us the gap. AI is widening. You are in a room where you can change it. Thank you. Thank you. QR code for the handout is right here if you want the handout. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.